You may notice that I'm not in my normal work office. I'm actually in a hotel room, as you can see behind me. And that's because I'm in California doing some shooting over the next few days. But I thought this was a good opportunity to sit in front of the camera, make some videos, and roll them out over the next couple weeks. So you'll probably see for some time me in this setting with this shirt. I usually make videos in batches just so that I can roll them out and I don't have to do them every single day, which is helpful for my schedule and hopefully keeps fresh content on the channel. But I wanted to share a story about how we got here today because there's a little bit of an issue that I ran into, and it's just a good reminder that you always need to set time aside for problems because problems always arise. Today we flew in from Phoenix to California and came in a day before the shoot like we always do or usually do, just because that's a nice buffer window in case a flight's delayed, a bag gets lost, something goes wrong, worst case scenario kind of stuff. It usually doesn't happen that way, but I would hate for that to be the case, day of filming, to have something go horribly wrong. And the shoot tomorrow is actually really early in the morning, so a flight wouldn't work anyway. So we got in at noon today, and we had to go pick up the rental car, and that's where we ran into the big issue. We normally travel, when we travel, we usually get a minivan. Maybe I've mentioned that in other videos, I don't remember. But we usually get a minivan because of all the gear. You can get a Suburban or another big SUV, but because of the way they're built and how high they are off the ground and the way the seats fold down, it's usually not the most space for the most amount of gear. So that's why we usually do the minivan, because you just fold those seats down, that's like stow and go or whatever the marketing term is for it, and there's just like a place to put all your stuff. And we have a lot of stuff because we travel with lights, cameras, audio equipment, stands, flags, diffusion, suitcases for the clothes. Like it's a lot of stuff, and to make it all fit you need space, so the minivan. And so we had selected the minivan from the rental car company, and well, first of all, I got there and there was no one working the kiosk, which was really frustrating. So I went to the other kiosk and there was no one there. And there was one person in front of me who then took 30 minutes getting their car. And by the time I got through and got the minivan, it turns out this is not a normal minivan. It's like a weird, goofy minivan that didn't have fold down seats. They fold down like halfway, where it like kind of folds down, but it's like an angle and you're like, what am I gonna do with that? It was not ideal and was not going to work for what we needed. There were only 2 of us traveling on this trip, but we still have all this gear, so we need a space for it. So me thinking like, well, there's other car rental companies, I'll pop over to one of those. And all of them either, they had minivans, but I needed a reservation, which I obviously didn't have because I had a reservation with this other company, or they just didn't have any cars available at all, which I thought was really weird that you're offering a product or a service and you don't have that product or service to offer. Literally every single car company I went down, there was probably 10 in the, like normal rental car company hub area. And it's really frustrating too, because so many of them are like, oh, well, we're the same company as that one. I'm like, well, if you're the same, then why is there a different name? How does that make any sense? That's beyond me, I don't know. But finally, I'm going through and I'm like, okay, I can make a Suburban work. Do you have any Suburbans? No, we don't have any of those. And this one company was like, oh yeah, we've got it, but it's gonna be like 3 times more expensive than what you were gonna charge for the other one. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Finally got a car figured out, but this took like an hour and a half. And if I didn't have the time, like maybe we had planned the day to where we were gonna land and we were gonna go meet the client, or we were gonna go to the shoot and scout the location right after we landed. That would have been terrible because this whole debacle unfolded. And so the whole point of this is just say, plan ahead, make sure you give yourself windows, because what you want ideally is to be waiting around with nothing to do. That's the perfect case scenario, because that means nothing went wrong and you have extra time because you built yourself a buffer window. But like we know, these problems are going to happen, and it can come from anywhere. It could be a flat tire, it could be a flight delay, it could be a bag that's lost, it could be a rental car that they don't have or they have the wrong one. And you don't want to be in a situation where that problem that was out of your control affects your ultimate work performance. Because yeah, you can make an excuse, you can say what the reason was for something happening, but that still doesn't negate the fact that it happened and it ruined potentially the project. These things could have a significant impact on actually being able to deliver things. Now, obviously there are like, worst case scenario type things, where I don't know, some horrible event happened and there's traffic and it was impossible and no one could plan for it, right? And maybe it delayed by a whole day. well, that's kind of out of control. But for the things that you can plan for and can accommodate with that buffer window, I highly recommend it, because the problems will happen. They're going to happen, and you have to be prepared for them, because if you're not, it's maybe going to reflect, it's going to come back and reflect on you, and you don't want that. You don't want other people's stupid business policies or whatever to affect you and your work performance. You want to look like a hero. You want to look like the best. You're the best at what you do, and if you let other people affect that in a negative way, I don't think that's a good idea. So for anyone who tells you like, oh, don't worry about it, you're just, you're hyper, where you're paranoid, right? That's not going to happen. That's like worst case scenario. Well, worst case scenario might happen, and you got to be prepared for it, because if you're not, like I said, you might look kind of bad in the end, and you might lose a client, you might lose a project. That might be a financial loss, in the immediate, or a long-term loss of a relationship, and you definitely don't want that. So like I said, always have a buffer window, always have a backup plan, a plan B, and probably a plan C, and probably a plan D is usually a good idea as well. So just keep that in mind next time you're planning a shoot or production or project of any kind, because it will be helpful to have that stuff in mind, and you can avoid the naysayers who think you're being paranoid. Because, and you can, if you want, you can point them to this video and say, hey, go watch this video, because this guy knows what he's talking about. Sometimes I know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe you like to live on the edge of your seat all the time in like rush mode. I don't know. Maybe that's what you like, but let me know. Happy to hear your feedback. If you want clarification or you have a question about this video, feel free to leave a comment below, because I'm happy to answer it. I usually try and answer all the comments on my videos. So leave one down below. Happy to answer it.